Okay, how's this going to look? 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man Donald Trump. What's going to happen there? And they got to be looking at that, and they've got to be saying that despite all the great progress and despite all the great wokeness and despite all the great ground that's been covered, America's still not ready to elect a gay guy kissing his husband on the debate stage president.
Okay. I don't really know if America's ready for that at all, but if they're not, they should be. Now, everybody knows that I'm a pro-gay rights, pro-gay marriage Republican and have been for 40 years. If you have gay people in your family, as I do, and I love them very much, I've got Ann's nephew, I've got a cousin, I've got another cousin that are gay, and both male and female. And so they're happily married, and they want to have a family. Who am I to say that somebody can't have a family or that somebody can't live their life in the way that they choose? I'm never going to say that, and neither would the president, and that's why he tweeted out that he would vote for Mayor Pete if Mayor Pete was aligned on the issues. I don't think Mayor Pete's sexual orientation or whether or not he has a husband, and Chasten, I think the young man's name is, I don't think that amounts to a hill of beans. And I don't think America cares, the majority of them, one way or the other. I would say that if it was the same Mayor Pete with the same husband doing the same thing, kissing him on stage, and Mayor Pete was a bona fide, absolute true believer in Donald Trump's America First agenda, and he had a history of fighting for it, if Mayor Pete was pro-life, if Mayor Pete understood the threat that China poses to us and was a believer in protectionist and tariffs, if Mayor Pete was for building a wall and closing the border so that we can protect our jobs, if Mayor Pete was for stripping Wall Street and Goldman Sachs of the unwavering power they have over the government of the United States and taking care of their cronies to the expense of U.S. workers, if Mayor Pete was anti-interventionist and wanted us to get out of these wars, if Mayor Pete wanted to get us out of Syria, wanted to get us out of Afghanistan, if Mayor Pete held those positions and at the same time was married to Chasten, kissed him on stage and was openly gay, and he was running for office, president or otherwise, would I vote for him? You know what the answer is? Absolutely. I would absolutely vote for him in a heartbeat. Because, look, either we don't ascribe to identity politics or you do. And there are a percentage of people in this country who are gay and around the world. And if we're now at a time where we got Rush Limbaugh questioning whether or not somebody has the masculinity or the manlyhood, I mean, give me a break, Rush. I mean, maybe it's time for him to retire. Give me a break. I mean, what world and bubble do you live in? I mean, this is America. People are free. They can do legally what they choose. And if Mayor Pete is happy with his husband and they're in love with each other and they want a family, and that's within the legal bounds of the United States, as the Supreme Court said it is, what does that have to do with me? Or what does that have to do with how he would execute his role as president of the United States? Well, Rush Limbaugh says, is that the role model people want? I want a role model of America First and getting things done. What somebody does in their personal life is not my business. I'm happy, he's happy. Whether he becomes a Democratic nominee or not, I think is irrelevant to his sexual orientation. And nor should it be part of the debate or the dialogue. Now, if people want to think this privately, they can do that. And I've said on the air, I've just commented that his sexual orientation might not be exactly helping him with certain segments of voters in the Democratic Party, but that's for him to weigh politically and figure out how to deal with that. But as far as would I vote for him if he stood with me on every major issue of the day, absolutely. I wouldn't even blink an eye. I wouldn't hesitate for a second. I am in favor of building roads and bringing our kids back from Afghanistan. Closing the borders, shutting down this open border slave trade nonsense, getting on an even playing field with China, cutting regulations, cutting taxes, getting out of the way of small business, all the things this president is doing and getting out of these wars, all the things he's doing, and cutting down the administrative state and throwing TNT in the swamp, and maybe you'll blow something up. That's what I'm in favor of. Mayor Pete's sexuality has nothing to do with any of that for me. I'm not going to vote for Mayor Pete because I don't subscribe to his ideological way of thinking. I happen to think that he's very liberal. He's also a corporatist. He's also going to continue to get money from Goldman Sachs and Wall Street, as he's been doing. He's also going to continue to go to wine caves. And if he becomes president, he'll be a corporatist, Democrat, elitist president with his staff, with his administration filled with Goldman Sachs executives. That's what I'm concerned about. I don't care about his sexual orientation or who he kisses on stage. I could care less. And what does that have to do with me? Nothing. Zero. Now, this is where Limbaugh is wrong. Seb Gorka comes on yesterday and says, well, what right does Mayor Pete have to do to talk about pro-choice? Excuse me? That's his opinion. What, now because he's not married to a woman, he can't talk about abortion? Like, what planet do these people live on? You want to win? You want to do the right thing? You focus on the issues at hand. These are sideshows of which there is no value. Now, if somebody out there likes the Democratic candidates and they like their positions and they're undecided between Pete and Amy and they go for Amy because of Pete's sexual orientation, well, that's Pete's problem. It's not mine. Maybe there's people that are voting for Pete because he is gay. I don't know. Who cares? But for those of us in the Trump orbit to be bringing this up, and I predicted on my radio show over the weekend several times when I was in both Iowa and New Hampshire covering his campaign, I predicted with arguing with people on the air that the president would come out with a statement saying it didn't matter to him. And that if Pete is the nominee, you're not going to get a single negative comment on a sexual orientation by this president or his key surrogates, not people out there, key, like me. You're not going to get a negative comment. Not one. Why? Because the president's pro-gay rights, and he's been for 40 years. You can't do business in New York City without being that way. It's just a way of life. There's a large gay population there, so it's just part of life. It is what it is. So the president, I predicted, would never go there, even though people were saying, oh, he can't restrain himself. No, he will not go there, ever. And you saw his tweet yesterday. He said it on Geraldo, I think, on some podcast. He said, yeah, if Mayor Pete was aligned with me on the issues, I'd vote for him in a heartbeat. Who cares?